It wasn't a press conference. It wasn't an award show. It wasn't a red carpet appearance. It was a whisper. A whisper that grew into a storm that shook the world of Hollywood faith and fame alike. Keanu Reeves, the man who walked through fire as Neo, who rode through vengeance as John Wick, who vanished from the spotlight only to return more radiant, had done something no one saw coming. He embraced Islam, and his message didn't just move people, it ignited hearts across the world. It all began with silence. Not the kind you find on a quiet street, but the silence of the soul. A man worth hundreds of millions, known across continents, adored by fans, yet never blinded by stardom. Keanu had always been different. He gave away millions, rode the subway like any regular person, sat alone in parks, in cafes, in alleyways. He wasn't chasing fame, he was seeking something far deeper, and the world never understood what that was, until now. When asked why, he didn't blink, he didn't hesitate, he didn't try to intellectualize his decision. He simply said, "Because Islam gave me peace that nothing else ever could." And the room froze. Reporters, producers, even his closest friends paused. This wasn't a PR stunt. This wasn't a publicity act. This was a man standing in truth, even if the world wouldn't understand it. But understanding wasn't necessary. You could feel it, the sincerity in his voice, the depth in his eyes, the way he pronounced Allahu Akbar with trembling reverence, not for the cameras, but for the Creator. This wasn't Keanu Reeves the actor anymore. This was Keanu Reeves the seeker, who had finally found what he was searching for. People began digging. How did this happen? When did he start learning about Islam? The journey wasn't immediate. It was a series of moments, clues, nudges from the unseen. He said it began when he met a cab driver in New York. A man with little English but a powerful presence. The cabbie drove in silence, but before dropping him off, he whispered, "Everything you're looking for, it's in sujud." Keanu didn't understand at first. He looked it up. Sujud, the act of prostration in Islam, the most humbling position a human can take. That moment haunted him, in the best way. He began reading, quietly, privately, first out of curiosity, then hunger. The Qur'an wasn't just a book, it felt alive. He said it was like reading a mirror. Every verse peeled layers off his soul. It didn't judge him, it revealed him. And in the middle of his $1 million projects, his interviews, and his travels, Keanu was slowly falling in love with truth, with surrender, with Islam. It wasn't overnight. He questioned, he doubted. He wrestled with old beliefs. But Islam wasn't asking him to abandon his intellect. It was asking him to submit his ego. And he said that's what broke him. Not in a weak way, but in the most liberating way imaginable. "I realized," he said, "that all my life, I had been trying to be strong by controlling everything. Islam taught me that true strength is letting go." He began praying. At first, he struggled. The Arabic words weren't easy. The timings were hard. But each prayer left him lighter. Each sujud emptied burdens he didn't know he was carrying. He started attending masjids quietly, often disguised. And in the stillness of dawn, he felt closer to purpose than in all his years on set. Then came the night. That one night he would never forget. He stood under the stars, tears in his eyes, and whispered the words, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah," the testimony of faith, the declaration that changed his eternity. He didn't need cameras. He didn't need applause. It was just him and his Creator. And in that moment, he said, he felt more alive than he ever had as Neo, John Wick, or any character he ever played. When the news leaked, social media exploded. Keanu is Muslim trended across platforms. Some mocked, some cheered, some were confused. But Keanu didn't flinch. He wasn't doing this for anyone but God. "If I lose fans, roles, or friends because of this," he said, "then I never truly had them. But if I gain the mercy of Allah, I've gained everything." He shared something that stunned many. During one of his darkest moments, when he lost his girlfriend and his daughter, he said he would cry to the sky, asking why. But Islam gave him an answer that nothing else ever did. It told him, "Verily, with hardship comes ease, not just words, a divine promise," and he held on to that. He said he finally understood pain. It wasn't punishment, it was purification. Since accepting Islam, Keanu has changed in ways that only those close to him can truly describe. He speaks less but with more weight. He smiles more but not to impress. He gives without posting. He prays without telling. He's even begun learning Arabic, not for a role, but for the Qur'an. One story went viral. A fan met him in a bookstore, saw a copy of the Qur'an in his hand, and asked why. Keanu looked up, smiled, and said, "Because this is the only script I need now." His message to the world wasn't fiery. It wasn't confrontational. It was soft, but earth-shaking. He said, "Don't follow me. I'm still learning. Follow truth. Follow peace. Follow what brings you closer to the one who created you." For me, that path is Islam. And just like that, hearts across the globe opened. Some skeptics started reading the Qur'an. Some atheists paused to reflect. Some Muslims who had drifted from their faith were pulled back in. Not because of fame, but because sincerity shines through. No matter the medium, Keanu doesn't claim to be perfect. He admits he's still learning, still falling, still getting up. But isn't that what Islam is? A journey, not a performance. A constant return to the one who forgives endlessly. He's already working on projects to support refugees in Palestine, to build schools in underprivileged Muslim areas, and to amplify voices of Islamic scholars and thinkers in Western media. But he does it silently. He said, "The left hand shouldn't know what the right is giving." For those wondering how Hollywood will react, Keanu said simply, "If I can't be both a good actor and a good Muslim, I'll choose Islam every time. Because acting might give me a living, but Islam gave me a life." His words hit deeper than any movie line he's ever delivered, because they came from a place no script could capture, from a heart surrendered to truth. The world had seen Keanu at his most vulnerable. Yet, even in those moments, there was a light in him that no tragedy could extinguish. Now, with Islam as his foundation, that light had transformed into something radiant. It wasn't the kind of brightness that blinds. It was the kind that heals, that guides. He became an example, not just to the millions who had admired him for his acting, but to anyone searching for truth. Keanu's decision to embrace Islam was not about rejecting his past, it was about accepting his present, with all its complexities and contradictions. He didn't renounce his career or the roles that had defined him. Instead, he approached them with a new lens. "I don't live for the accolades anymore. I don't live for the applause or the awards," he said in one of his rare interviews after converting. "I live for purpose. And Islam gave me that." The world watched as Keanu began to incorporate his faith into his daily life, and the change was subtle but undeniable. He took time for prayer, even amidst his busiest schedules. He became more present in every moment, more in tune with his surroundings. "You can live in the world, but not be of it," he once said, quoting a teaching that resonated with him deeply from Islamic tradition. This idea, the balance of living in the world while remaining unattached to its fleeting pleasures, was a core part of his transformation. For those who had followed his journey, this transformation was not entirely surprising. Keanu had always been a man who searched for meaning, a man who had wrestled with loss, love, and loneliness. And now, he was facing life with a new sense of direction. He began to speak more openly about the struggles he had endured, not as a way to garner sympathy, but as a means of opening a door for others to find their own peace. His message wasn't about Islam being the only way. It was about the universality of truth. Keanu spoke with compassion, urging others to seek out what made them whole, to search for a deeper connection with God, regardless of their faith. It's not about a label. It's about surrendering to what's greater than you. It's about understanding that you're a part of something much bigger, much more profound. But his message also carried weight, because it came from someone who had everything the world often believes it wants: fame, wealth, success. In an industry where many are consumed by ego and power, Keanu remained a figure of humility. He had been at the top, and yet it wasn't enough. That wasn't where he found peace. That peace, he now knew, came from something far more eternal. Keanu's decision to embrace Islam was also met with resistance, not just from the outside world, but from within the very circles he had once thrived in. Hollywood, an industry notorious for its skepticism and cynicism, didn't know how to react. Some dismissed it as a phase. Others wondered whether his decision was driven by a desire for attention. But Keanu, undeterred, continued on his path. Let them talk. I'm not here for their approval. I'm here for something greater. Yet, there were those who understood. People in his circle began to notice subtle changes. There was a newfound depth in his conversations, a new level of understanding. He began attending events that had nothing to do with Hollywood. He spent time with Islamic scholars, learning not just the words of the Qur'an, but the deeper meanings behind them. And he didn't do it for anyone else's validation. He did it because it was his own journey, a journey of inner peace, of connecting with the divine in ways that transcended the mundane. His family, friends, and colleagues had long known Keanu as a quiet man of great integrity. Now, they saw a man who had found peace in his soul. The transformation was evident in the way he interacted with others. His kindness deepened. His sense of justice became sharper. His empathy extended beyond the superficial. In one notable instance, Keanu used his platform to speak out against the oppression of Muslims in different parts of the world. He didn't do it for publicity, but because it was the right thing to do. His fame gave him a voice, and now, that voice was being used to speak on behalf of the marginalized. His story became a source of inspiration, not just for Muslims, but for millions across the globe. People from all walks of life began reaching out to him, sharing their own struggles and seeking guidance. Some were dealing with addiction, others with grief. Some were facing a crisis of faith. Keanu's journey gave them hope. He reminded them that no matter how far lost one might feel, redemption was always within reach. I was lost, he confessed in a rare moment of vulnerability. But I found my way, and you can too. As time passed, Keanu's embrace of Islam became more than just a news headline. It became a movement. People who had long been disillusioned by the emptiness of fame and fortune found themselves reconnecting with the truth, inspired by his example. It was no longer about following a celebrity. It was about following a man who had found peace within himself and was willing to share it with the world. Keanu's message was simple, but it resonated deeply. You don't have to be perfect to be loved by God. You just have to be sincere in your intentions, and God will guide you, he said, echoing a profound teaching of Islam. It wasn't a message of condemnation or superiority. It was a message of hope, of unconditional love, of the infinite mercy of Allah. In the years that followed, Keanu continued his journey, but now, he did it with a sense of purpose. His career took a backseat to his spiritual growth, and yet, he continued to make films that resonated with deeper themes of redemption, sacrifice, and the search for truth. Even his most popular characters, like John Wick, became symbols of a greater struggle. One between the inner self and the external world, one between darkness and light. Keanu's embrace of Islam was not just about changing his faith. It was about changing the way the world viewed faith. He showed that true strength is found in humility, that true wealth is found in contentment, and that the ultimate victory is in surrendering to the divine will. His story wasn't just about a man finding religion. It was about a man finding himself, and in doing so, He inspired millions to embark on their own journey of self-discovery, seeking not just success, but peace. For those who once saw Keanu as a distant figure, someone far removed from their lives, they now saw him as a symbol of hope. The actor who once played a reluctant hero was now the real-life hero for many, showing them that no matter how broken they felt, no matter how far they had strayed, redemption was always possible. The world had watched him go from a superstar to a seeker, and it had learned something valuable in the process. Keanu's embrace of Islam wasn't just a religious decision, it was a spiritual awakening, a call to return to what matters, a call to return to God. As for, so words, like therefore, in summary, finally, etc., these can also weaken the emotional impact if overused. Viral scripts often work best when they stay personal, emotional, and conversational without sounding like a school essay. Instead, the ending should feel like a soft landing, a final emotional push that lingers in the heart and mind of the viewer.